There are things that pass through operation of law, and there's things that pass through trust. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV or radio, but we work with a lot of great estate planning attorneys. Whether you have a trust or whether you have a will, different things matter when you move. Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Angi Kinser.
We are happy to have you along. Angie, you want to talk about documents and insurance policies when somebody's domicile changes.
Yeah.
And what would you like to know?
I want to know is, well, you just talking about trusts. Is your trust still valid? I mean, if you move to another state?
It is. It is one of the best way to think about a trust is to think about owning a company, right? So when you have property that is owned in what we are taught to call operation of law. So when it's in your name or joint with somebody, right? If it's owned in your name, it's going to go through probate. Probate is driven by the state tax code, okay? You only get to probate by having a will, right? Now, some people say, well, I have a will, therefore I won't go to probate. Nope, the other way around. If you have a will, you're saying, please probate my estate, right? Now, there are some ways, if your asset base is small enough, you can get around it a little bit quicker, and some good attorneys can certainly help with some of that stuff that needs to be done. But you know, we've got a $3 million plus estate where everything was put in the trust, and later in life, she forgot about $250,000 CD, and they are going to go through probate, 9 months of torture over this CD, even though the trust would have protected it. The trust can travel from state to state and be okay. So we just set up a trust this year that is a Nevada trust because there's no law against perpetuities. That's one of the things that I can help people do when their estate's the right size and it's necessary. My trust is an Indiana trust, but if I move to Arizona, it's still an Indiana trust, right? And I am fine with that. Now, states, because there's battles, will come up with rules that says, well, you can't be a trustee if you're not blood related, or you can't be an executor, which is what they can really control. It's very difficult to control a trustee, but I have no doubt that states will try in the future. So the key difference is if you own property in multiple states, you will go through probate in multiple states. If you own a trust and everything has been put in, or what we call funded into the trust, you don't go through probate at all.
Now, do marital property rules change?
Oh, absolutely. There's yes. There's essentially quasi-community property states, community property states. There's all sorts of different things that can happen there, and where this gets involved is two things. Once people are gone, it's what the estate tax, the step up in basis is called, depending on the state, can be part of it. The other part is what part of the assets after the marriage didn't work out, you're actually able to get or to take, right? So in Indiana, we talk about prenuptial agreements, but what came into the marriage stays with the person that brought it. If that's properly defined, what was gained during the marriage is typically divided in Indiana, in a different manner.
A lot of us have like medical directives and certain like powers of attorney and things like that. So how does moving to a new state impact those type of documents?
If I moved to Arizona, the first thing that I would do, and I already know the answer to this, but the first thing that I would do is determine if Arizona's trust code is better than Indiana's trust code for me. Again, God made us all unique, right? So my situation is different than Ms. Kinser's, right? So a state that might be right for me may not be right for you. Right? So if I was going to make the determination based on where I wanted to live, I would get there and assess whether Arizona or Indiana had better laws for what I needed to have happen. Let's say they didn't, that I was going to stay with the Indiana trust. I would still pay to have an attorney in Arizona write and rewrite the medical directive that you talked about, any of the power of attorneys that need to be there. Most of the case, that's satisfied inside of the trust, by the way. But the one that's not is what's called a pour-over will. I have a will. The will says anything I forgot to put in my trust, please do, right? That way it goes to where I want it to go because, we may buy a car or something and Barb's not there. and it's in one person's name, which means it would go through probate. So I've got to go to the BMV, one of the least things I want to do on the planet of the earth, and
That and Walmart.
dentist, the dentist, BMV, and I love Greg Horsemeyer. He's a great dentist if you're looking for one. Anyhow, it's but it needs to be put in the trust, and I didn't have the document with me the day I was there.
Okay, if you move to a new state, does your health care insurance transfer with you?
My quick answer to that is no. If you worked for a big company, like our people that are at Financial Enhancement Group that are in Florida, one of them is on our healthcare plan, but we've got a national provider, right? If you were going to a different company, I don't think that would be the case. And some companies, some healthcare providers are only regional. So that's a tougher one to get to, but it's certainly one you don't want to get surprised.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then there's always, if you get transferred to another state, but it's a different company, you can get the COBRA insurance or something to carry over.
Yeah, but then you got network issues and all of that other stuff that you've got to get into play. That healthcare is one of those big issues. And truthfully, other than this new experience with snowbirds who are still working, but why not work from the beach if I'm going to have to work from home, right? They're the tryouts, as I've been calling them. Other than that, I don't know many people who are snowbirds before they're on Medicare. And then it's not the issue that it is for people our age.
We had a question come in. What if I had a will instead of a trust? Is that will still valid if I move?
Nope. All wills are under state law. You need to get it redone when you get there as quickly as you can. That's why I said the same thing about the healthcare directive and those kind of things. Now, many wills have what's called a testamentary trust. It's if you think about it, once you die, it springs to life as a trust. That may have made sense at some point in time. And again, I'm not an attorney. Get a good counsel on this. We've got good people to refer you to that can walk you through it. But if you think you need a testamentary trust, I would recommend that you just get a trust now. That's my personal, non-legal opinion.
Okay, so we've been talking about snowbirds. And what if you if you're spending half and half in each state, and you still have to consider one of them your domicile, but do you have to carry a driver's license in both states?
You're getting into that legal stuff to where you really have to be careful. The answer is no, you don't have to have one in both states. You do have to have an insurance policy that covers you in both states, and they have to know that you're doing that. There's a whole checklist that needs to be built before you leave one place to go to another, of all the things you need to turn on and turn off in the house or in the condo, and that you need to be prepared for. And some of the checklists, I take care of a bundle of engineers. Some of the checklists are amazingly detailed. Some, they just do it in their head. It's kind of like,
I was reading through that checklist, and I saw too that some car insurance companies won't allow you to transfer.
If
you move
you're not covered you're not covered in other areas, or the coverage ranges can change. A lot goes on inside of that.
Okay. Well, if you, I know that we had this other question come in, but Florida, and I think you might have already answered it, but they were wanting to know is if you can have an out-of-state person be your executor. Florida won't allow it at all, and I
think Florida gets picked on because so many people go there from Indiana. Right, so we know it better, right? It's easier to gossip about people that are out of their house than it is in, right? I mean, it's Florida has done some peculiar things. If you're an Indiana resident and you were hanging out part of the time in Kentucky or Tennessee, your Indiana attorney can take care of your documents for you. Put stuff inside of your trust, and this may have changed in recent time that I don't know, but it burnt me that putting your house, funding your house inside of a trust is not that difficult of a task, and we had to literally find a Florida licensed bar certified attorney that could do it for an Indiana-based family and an Indiana-based trust. Just because they were down in Florida and bought a piece of property and needed it put in their trust, they had to have Florida counsel to do that. Florida's got some odd rules that are out there, and you really need to know what some of those rules are when you move to a state. I love Tennessee. It's probably my second favorite. Tennessee and Arizona would be the two toss-ups, and people will tell you that Tennessee is state income tax free. That's true, but it's not true for capital gains.
That's what I was going to ask when we were talking about Florida, and they're one of those income tax free states. How do they benefit from that? I mean, what are they getting in turn for no one having to pay the?
Well, it's just like I told you. When Ron worked from his home in Indiana, right? I didn't have to pay to have his house licensed, right? They're going to be sending me a bill. He moved there this week. I'll be getting it was for Taylor. It was like $500 or $600 that they billed me, fined us for not registering it as an office. Right, that won't happen again.
No.
Right, so there is no free lunch. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They have to have revenue, so they get it either in this tax or that tax. Some are implied. Some are what we call consumer based. Right, if you want to smoke cigarettes and drink beer in some states, you're going to pay more taxes than you do in other states, but you may pay state income tax there. You may pay more for gasoline and more for tires, less for plates. All tax policy, social policy. What do I really want to be able to tax? And never forget, there's a state in the United States that doesn't tax. It didn't have hardly any people that retired from the federal government, so it made federal retirements income state tax free. Your retirement would be taxable, but if you worked for the federal government, it didn't. And so people drove across the line. All tax policy is social policy. We are at war, ladies and gentlemen, with each state over who we want to live, where we want to live. And you've got to be really, really careful as you look at some of the tax policy that comes out of Washington and how it impacts some of these states. This is going to get interesting here over the next, 2 years as repositioning begins to take place. And it may not even take that long. Hey, you're listening to Consider This program. Do not forget to call Angi at the Financial Enhancement Group. You can reach her at 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for your Next Steps meeting. We'll spend 90 minutes with you. Somebody on my team will give you 90 minutes where they're going to tell you things you're going to want to consider today, things you're going to want to consider in the future, and if we choose to partner together, what FEG will do for you. Again, go to the website, yourlifeafterwork.com. I get a team of 29 very, very talented people that are more than happy to sit down and see if we can work together to try to make your life after work a better place.